Hello people, ELAVI Truth TV here once again. Today I'm going to be tackling this whole mandatory idea of the vaccine. Because the vaccine's here now. And the system, the elites, have a big problem with their experiment in the UK. And the problem is that people are not taking the vaccine as much as they would have wished. So the programming of the people to take this vaccine isn't working out as planned. So I want to just go to the question of, should it be mandatory? Now, this has been popping up over the media for a while now, even before the vaccine. And I want to go to this news article in America, which shows that, well, let's have a look at it before I chime in, should I say. Let's have a quick look.
Dr. William Hildebrand is leading a team of researchers at the University of Oklahoma, one of more than 150 groups vigorously working on a COVID-19 vaccine.
We've never taken all the tools that we've accumulated in science and deployed them in unison on a problem like this.
Hildebrand successfully developed vaccines for West Nile virus and melanoma. Started working on the virus called SARS-CoV-2, what we know as COVID-19, back in March, infecting human cells with the virus and seeing how they react.
We decided to study this virus in particular, rather than learn from past coronaviruses and plug that into a vaccine.
But with the CDC telling states earlier this month to prepare for mass distribution of a possible vaccine by November 1st, many Oklahomans are wondering if that vaccine could be forced on them. Is that even possible? The short answer, yes.
A good example of that is some state laws will require nursing homes to ensure that their employees and even their patients' residents to be vaccinated for influenza every year.
Ayla Haas is an assistant professor of law at the University of Tulsa and a former public health attorney for the CDC. She says there is a precedent set for state and local governments mandating vaccines, notably a Supreme Court case from 1905. Jacobson versus Massachusetts.
That was an instance where state government was allowing local governments to require mandatory vaccinations, and that was upheld by the Supreme Court as constitutional because it is both the responsibility and the duty of a government like states to protect and promote the public health and welfare of their citizens.
Something New Yorkers in several Brooklyn neighborhoods saw just last year when a measles vaccine was mandated for residents after an outbreak. But the most prevalent example of vaccination laws occur in schools, students having to submit a shot record showing that they received the required vaccinations, or they can turn in an exemption form.
You can see they have the power and they have the legislation in place to actually make it mandatory. They have the precedents that have already been set with other vaccines. So they're going to push it in that way. And Mr. Biden, the new presidential devil, and I'm not singling him out to say that he's a devil and the rest of them weren't, is already, planning to make it a mandatory thing. But what's going to happen here? Well, they like to program us here in a different way, using the media, obviously. I'm not saying that the media isn't used to program us in America, but I'm going to show you exactly how the debate is being run here by going to this first section in this media article. Let's go in.
The virus vaccine could be rolled out as early as next month across the UK, but Health Secretary Matt Hancock says immunisation won't be compulsory.
The vaccine could prevent 90% of people getting COVID, and given the devastating effect of the virus, should vaccination be compulsory for all?
According to a Twitter poll, almost 36% say it should be, 64% disagree with forced vaccination. In a YouGov poll, we found 66% would be willing to have the vaccine, 14% wouldn't, and 20% were unsure.
Now, straight away, within this opening introduction to this debate that they're about to have, we can say that they're already dropping misinformation, talking about the vaccine will cure up to 90% of the people who take it. Well, the government state this, that there is no evidence that it will prevent anybody from getting anything. It can't prevent there's no evidence that said it can prevent it. You can catching this COVID-19. It doesn't say it can stop you from passing it on. In fact, it says that they don't know. So this is already propaganda, lies that the media are telling us in order for us to do what? Well, I'm not going to answer that straight away, but I'm going to go into this debate and see what the players are in the debate, so to speak. Because obviously, if we're going to have a debate, we should have an unbiased debate with people from all sides of the debate putting their input in. And I hope that's what we're going to have. So let's go to the characters.
Well, we're joined now by Glenn DeShields, who is a vaccine trial volunteer from Texas. And also by journalist Eve Pollard, who says it should be against the law not to take the vaccine, as it's the only way to get the world back to normal. Former model COVID survivor Linda Lusardi says nobody should be forced to take it and is adamant she won't. And Dr. Gabriel Scally, professor in public health at Bristol University as well.
Seems quite balanced enough. People from different demographics, and it also states that there's a person there, Linda Lusardi, an ex-model, who is adamant, they say, who's against the vaccine and will take it at no cost at all. We also have a doctor. So let's start understanding where they actually stand and how the debate's going to unfold.
For those who may be wary of having the vaccine, what would your message be?
Get it. Get it as quick as you can get it. This is the only way to end it. A vaccine being produced doesn't do us any good. Everybody getting vaccinated ends it. So I would tell everybody, my piece of advice would be get it done, and get it done as soon as they allow you to get it.
And the worst that happened to you, having been injected with the vaccine, was you felt like you had a bit of a hangover.
Correct.
So the first information we're getting now is being told by somebody who's been brave enough to get the vaccine, to get it and get it done as soon as possible. Now, this is also after we had the first person from here to get it, who was this character. Now, this character was painted as a hero in a kind of ritualistic event where she was going down the aisle and people are on one side. You can see this going on here. And when she was asked what her advice would be, she said,
At the moment, so do, please go for it. That's all I say, you know. If I can do it, well, so can you, you know.
So again, the media using these guinea pigs, so to speak, the ones who are so-called brave enough to get the vaccine in order to influence our decisions, to show how brave they are, to show that there's no side effects, and also to show that we must get it as soon as possible. Let's go back to the debate and see exactly where they go here now, with the Pollard one, who believes that it should be illegal for people not to take it.
Pollard, Eve, you feel strongly the vaccine should be mandatory for people. Obviously, that's quite a controversial position. Many people say, well, I don't want to be forced to do anything. Why do you feel that?
Nobody wants to be forced to do anything, like being in lockdown by being, I look at shops and I think if it's too crowded, I'm not going in there. It's common sense. The way we got rid of polio, the way we got rid of whooping cough is it's not mandatory, but it more or less is because people had them at the time when people would accept them. Pregnant women now get an injection for whooping cough, so their baby never gets it. If we don't do it, there'll be a football match or there'll be a music festival or something, and it will rise again.
Interesting point here with Eve Pollard is that Piers Morgan said it was an extreme stance to take. But the way she explained it was this, is that nobody wants to take this extreme stance of making it mandatory. However, there's going to be an event, there's going to be something that's going to spark everything off. There's going to be something where it will start spreading again. And this will be the catalyst why people need to prevent this and need to take the vaccine. So let's go to the medical expert and see what he has to say about this whole forcing or making it mandatory. Will he be the voice of reason? Let's go in.
If everybody had the vaccine, we could emerge from all of it, couldn't we?
Well, we don't yet know how good the vaccine is at stopping the transmission of the virus. We know it stops people getting symptoms, but they may still get infected and may transmit the virus. So we don't know yet how protective it is. But I know of no country in the world that actually makes vaccination mandatory on the citizens. places like the States, in schools, for example, in a lot of the US, your children have to be vaccinated before they can go to a public school. And that's one thing, but forcing people to have a needle stuck into them and a solution injected into them, it's not the way we do things. We get rid of these diseases because we see it as a collective responsibility, and we do it voluntarily. It's like blood donation. It's one of these things we do, and we do it to protect the small proportion of people who, for whatever medical reason, good medical reason, can't have the vaccination. And we should be relying on that community effort this time around as well.
Well, the doctor does appear to seem like the voice of reason, talking about the fact that we don't do this. We do not force people. We would rather persuade and encourage and do it through a sense of unity. What does that actually mean? What does persuade and encouraging mean? Because he does sound like he's on the side of not making it mandatory, not forcing people to do this. But are they just giving a voice to those who are fearful without actually adhering to what people actually want? Now, the figures that they gave at the beginning of this from some kind of poll don't mean anything, because any poll can be shown to reflect whatever they wish it to reflect. But they are trying to reflect the fact that the people that don't want it are in the minority. Now, at the outset, we were told that Linda Lusardi, who's just about to come up, will not take the vaccine. She's against it. So let's hear what she has to say.
I'm quite surprised by your position, because you were so ill with COVID. You thought you were dying at one stage. You were so ill. You feel strongly that you're not going to have the vaccine, and you don't think people should. I mean, the analogy I would give is when we get in a car, you have to have regulations to protect your safety, like wearing a seatbelt. And we all do that. It's mandated. It's done to stop us dying. What is the ideological difference between that and taking a vaccine?
Well, I'm not against people having the vaccine, and I'm sure the majority of people will have the vaccine. My concern is that not enough testing's been done. I mean, I know you had a scientist, Chris Smith, on the other day, and he was actually saying that people that have had COVID, this vaccination may not, may have side effects that are derogatory to the person. And as most of the nation aren't sure if they've had it or not, a lot of people might become ill because of it. I do think the majority of people will have it, will have the vaccine, and I'm really excited that there is one, but I don't feel that there's been enough research so far for people like me to have the vaccine.
Well, straight away we find out that that isn't correct. She isn't against the vaccine at all. She has some kind of fears as to whether it's safe or not, which is something totally different. So within this debate, we can already hear that the people actually against the vaccine, people that do not want it in their bodies, believe that it's something detrimental on many different grounds, believe that some people believe some very extreme things about the vaccine to do with it changing people's DNA. And there's been evidence to suggest that this is true. But this isn't really the point of this debate here today that I'm doing in this episode of ELAVI Truth TV. The reason for this is to find out whether it should be mandatory or is it going to become mandatory. So we go back to the doctors, the so-called TV doctor and the other doctor. We go back to them for the final say in this so-called balanced debate about whether it should be mandatory.
Because if you vaccinate people against their wishes, it's an assault on the patient. It's never been done before. It's against the law. It can't do that. What I prefer is encouragement, persuasion and education. If we can persuade people that this is a valuable vaccine to have, it protects the individual, protects the NHS, it protects society at large, then I think we'll get somewhere.
I would say, look, if you don't want to have it, fine, but you're not allowed to fly, because why should other countries take you if you haven't had the vaccine?
Yep.
Well, other countries might make that stipulation
And I would go further and say, actually, OK, then you sign a waiver that if you don't have the vaccine and you get COVID, you don't get NHS treatment. Job done.
Yeah.
There we are.
That's making it mandatory.
Not mandatory, but you got to really...
So the fake TV doctor there, reading from his script, as they all are reading from their scripts, says that he would rather encouragement, persuasion and education. rather than forcing people, because to force something into somebody's body is an assault. He's telling the truth, it is an assault. And you should have power over your own body. But do we have power over our own bodies? Do we own our own bodies? Well, do the elite really think that? But here's the thing. If you noticed, this isn't really about encouragement, persuasion and education, because they've already told us information that's incorrect. So they're educating us with misinformation. However, the clincher here, the real point of this whole charade, this whole programming episode on television is what Piers Morgan says at the end. He believes that if people don't want it, they should be excluded from flying, have to sign something to say that they will not be included into other areas of life. And if you noticed, they were all nodding to this, even the so-called Linda Lusardi, who, the ex-Page 3 model who claims that she's against the vaccine. All of them, including the doctor, were in agreement with this. So we can get an idea of what's coming. But on the same propaganda television network, we had another similar debate. And this was kind of stemming off from the last thing that Piers Morgan was saying about he believes that people should be excluded. And it's interesting because they start debating, and in this new debate, different day, same channel, same agenda. They start the debate in a very interesting way. I want you to listen to the question that they ask.
Should people be refused entry to places like gyms, concert venues, even restaurants, if they haven't been vaccinated?
Yes.
The question, should people be excluded from gyms, restaurants, and if they haven't been vaccinated? And his co-host answers yes. Now this is subtle programming of the mind, NLP type indoctrination. When people are watching the television, their subconscious is very open. They're in a very susceptible place in terms of what they take in and how their minds can be swayed. So he's posing the question, and the host who sat alongside him said yes. Listen to it one more time before we move on.
Should people be refused entry to places like gyms, concert venues, even restaurants, if they haven't been vaccinated?
Yes.
And again, this is supposed to be a debate, a balanced debate, where two sides of the argument are put forward. Someone that believes it should be mandated, that you cannot go into any area unless you're vaccinated, and somebody that believes that is totally wrong, shouldn't happen. So let's go in.
Charlie Mullins. Now,
hi, good morning.
Very good morning to you, Charlie. You say you're going to refuse to send plumbers to customers who haven't been vaccinated, and you're going to make sure that all your plumbers are vaccinated. But we are also...
undoubtedly.
Yeah, well, hang on a moment, because we're also joined by presenter and comedian David Sideman Whiteley, who says you're hesitant about having the vaccine and you do not want people ostracised from society just because they're unsure about it. So, Charlie, it's fair enough that you might want all your employees to have it, although I expect some of them might have reasons not to have it and they might have objections to it. But to insist on your customers having it, is that not a step too far?
Well, I think you're going to find most people are going to want to have it, and I think it's going to become a standard thing across the country that people have been vaccinated, and if they're not vaccinated, not going to be able to travel, not going to be able to go in gyms, theatres, and maybe even in the workplace. So I don't think I'm saying anything that's not common sense.
Okay.
Now, in the previous section, we heard the co-host state at the end that it would be mandatory by stealth if it were a case where you couldn't go to certain places without being vaccinated. So this individual is talking about the fact that he's not going to allow his work staff to work if they don't have the vaccine, and they won't be going to anybody's houses to do this, to work for them if they haven't got a vaccine. And again, he's been given a lot of airtime. He's been given the ideology that he's operating from the point of view of a cure, but he goes on to say something else, which is interesting, that a television program that is supposed to be informing us, and don't forget what Dr. Hillary, the fake doctor, said, it was supposed to be educating us. Listen to what this person is allowed to say in this section.
Yeah, well, look, there's obviously exceptions and you can't force anyone to have it. But I'm saying is that, you know, I think it's going to be important to protect customers and their members of staff when they're going out to visit jobs. So if the standard thing is to have it, then that's the inquiry we've been making.
How would you feel, Charlie, if you weren't allowed to go to, say, a restaurant without a vaccine certificate or a pub?
I feel they're totally right. They're running a business. It's killed over 60,000 people in the UK, destroyed many people's life. We found a silver bullet for the cure of it. We need to take it.
OK.
We've been given a magic bullet, the cure. Now, shouldn't a journalist, should I say, challenge information that's going out? But they're allowing people to believe that this vaccine is a cure for the so-called COVID-19 virus. A cure? Okay. Well, if it's a balanced debate, let's hear from the other guy, the sideman something or whatever he's called. I don't really know him that well, so let's go in and hear what he's got to say. Because he's obviously going to have something intelligent to say that will give the other side of the debate as much weight as been given to this person that has been allowed to give misinformation to the public.
You can go to a number of countries, particularly those that have, you know, the corridor and there's no quarantine either end, but you will have to have, I think in every case now, a COVID negative test result within a few days of flying. That's the rule before you can leave the country. Why should it be different, actually, to where you can go in the country?
I think obviously like the COVID test, obviously that's like a lot less invasive than a vaccine. And I think it's important to understand that different people have different fear levels for different things. The same fear level that our Pimlico man here might have towards COVID is the same fear other people have towards the vaccine and the government, and that different kind of distrust that they have there where they feel like that's equally as unsafe.
Would you have it?
Me, at this point, I actually don't know. I actually don't know where I stand.
And what is stopping you? Because my understanding of it, and I've researched it pretty thoroughly to try and get my head around this, is that once it gets approval, it's about as safe as it can get. I mean, when they approve these things, it's not about cutting corners. There's been no corner cutting on safety. So there's no logical reason not to have it. What is your objection?
So straight away we see that Piers Morgan is coming across and asking this individual about the fact that, you know, people can't fly without the vaccine. So what's the difference, you know, from going to a restaurant or a gym? You know, isn't it the same restriction that you'd put on them as flying? So if they're going to accept the flying, why can't they accept this? But what's interesting is this person isn't against the vaccine at all. He's one of these, I don't know at the moment. So again, once it comes into this area of I don't know, you're not able to put your case as to why you are against the vaccine. It goes back to Pierce, and then he starts challenging as to what is the issue. There should be no logical reason, he says. No logical reason at all. And this individual's talking about fear and what people are actually afraid of. And it comes onto the government. Now, are we talking about the vaccine, or are we talking about people that have problems with the government? Because listen to what the co-host then does and says.
But you mentioned just a little bit earlier on a fear of the government. Is part of your problem that you don't trust the government's advice in this pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the government's handling of this pandemic, our government has been one of the most criticized in the world. And then now we're the first to sanction a vaccine. Because I believe that the government is made up of people, and people have agendas, people have feelings. I don't feel like it's impossible to suggest that we've pushed a vaccine forward quicker than everybody else to save face, more than it's about protecting the people.
I mean, Charlie, it is interesting, isn't it? There's no doubt trust in our government is very low, and one of the lowest, you know, of any comparable country in the world, because we have the worst death toll in Europe, and we also have the worst economic record this year through this pandemic. It's understandable that certain people are like, well, why should I trust the government when they tell me it's safe?
Yeah, look, I'm sure I understand that, but you've got to look at the point that, we've now found the vaccine that's going to help a lot of people. We've all been moaning and belly aching that we can't go to work, we can't go theatres, we can't travel. We're now being offered a cure for it, and we're turning our nose up it. I mean, it's a can't-win situation. We need to take the vaccine. The more people that take it, the more we get rid of this illness, the more we get back to normal working life.
Okay.
So once the co-host has diverted the argument and made it seem as if this individual is a government hater, he's got a problem with the government, not about the vaccine itself. We've changed the debate now. We've changed the debate. We're talking about a certain sect of people that do not trust the government. And then the debate takes another turn back to the individual that is allowed one more time to state that, look, if we have an issue with the government, that's one thing, but we've now been given a cure, he says. One more time, they've allowed this individual to give false information, claiming that it's a cure, and not just that it's a cure for a so-called COVID-19 virus, that it's a cure to all the problems because we've not been able to go here, we've not been able to go there. So again, this article is basically propaganda, stealth, mandatory by stealth. See, what I'm saying is the system does have a problem. So I'm going to go to this news article. And this news article is quite a long one, but it's interesting because it's going to paint the entire picture of what the problem is and how the governments are dealing with it. Watch it to the end, and then I'm going to chime in so that you can understand exactly what happens at the end in terms of encouragement, persuasion, and education.
The Pfizer vaccine is coming to the UK. Soon it'll be heading to other countries too, and a huge operation is underway.
Through 2021, we'll provide 1.3 billion doses.
And while many people want this as soon as possible, some are asking, do I have to be vaccinated? Well, let's be absolutely clear. The answer in the UK is no.
I strongly urge people to take up the vaccine, but it is no part of our culture or our ambition in this country to make vaccines mandatory. That's not how we do things.
Now, we know some will be exempt for health reasons, but for the vaccines to tame COVID-19, around 60 to 70% of adults need to have one. As one US official puts it,
vaccines are useless if they are not used to vaccinate.
And that's a cause for concern. In France, the Prime Minister says, my fear is that not enough French people will get vaccinated, which is why there's going to be a lot of encouragement in a range of forms. The first is reassurance on the safety of this vaccine. Some politicians are even offering to get the jab on TV.
If I thought it would help persuade anybody to do it, I will do it.
Next, immunisation cards are coming. The Welsh Government says anyone who's vaccinated will get one, and it's likely that in lots of countries you'll need proof of vaccine to do certain things. And we know an international travel pass is also in development.
It will be in the form of an app on a passenger's phone. So the data, for example, a coronavirus test result that is negative could be stored on there, and also proof of a vaccine.
The Australian airline Qantas is going further, suggesting it'll only take passengers who've had the jabs. And if airlines can exert pressure, so can countries. We know this from the control of yellow fever. These countries in Africa are on a long list of places you can't visit unless you've had the yellow fever vaccine. Something similar may happen with COVID. Australia's Prime Minister says there could be options where people have the choice of 2 weeks of quarantine or being vaccinated. I think that will be an incentive, he adds. And if that's how we'll be encouraged, in some countries, the case for mandatory vaccines is also being made. This may only apply to specific jobs, and there's a precedent for this. For example, some health workers in the US and Finland have to get a flu jab. US authorities suggest the same could happen with COVID. More broadly, the New York Times reports that Joe Biden's transition team is discussing the possibility of mandating the vaccine in the US via the government or via employers and schools. That too has precedent. In Australia, some state payments are tied to children being vaccinated, and France and Italy have a number of compulsory vaccines for children. But while those laws have increased vaccination rates, they may also provoke a counter-reaction. One French biologist has told local media of a concern that every time more vaccines are pushed upon us, there is a greater resistance to them. Her argument being that mandates can drive anti-vax sentiment. For now, though, governments around the world are focused on showing that this vaccine is safe and is the best route back to normal life. They're also focused on making this vaccine available because, let's remember, it will be many months before everyone who's persuaded can say yes.
This news article really puts forward the problem that the system has at the moment. It would like to mandate this vaccine and force us all to take the vaccine. But it fears something. It fears the pushback. It stated in there that the more they push the vaccine, the more resistance they have. So at the end, the presenter said, it will be a while before those who are persuaded will say yes. Well, the systems that are being put in place now are about forcing people. You know, you're going to have to prove that you've taken the vaccine or you won't be able to fly, you won't be able to do certain activities. You'll be excluded from society, basically. So I'm going to go to another news article just before I start to conclude. There's a few things that I want to show you, but I want to go to this to show you that when something's mandated, it doesn't mean that, you know, people can definitely get exemptions. And in the States, this has been happening.
Leaders in Washington state may crack down on vaccine exemptions amid a growing measles outbreak. Lawmakers are proposing a bill that would no longer allow parents to cite philosophical or personal reasons for not vaccinating their child. Currently, 18 states allow those exemptions. And Carter Evans is at the state capitol in Olympia, where a public hearing will take place today. Carter, good morning.
Good morning. The governor has declared a state of emergency here as the number of measles infections continues to rise. There are now 56 cases here in the Pacific Northwest, and lawmakers are hoping to pass a bill that will ensure more children are vaccinated.
Right now, my city is the hotbed for this outbreak.
Monica Stonier is the state representative for Clark County, Washington, the area hardest hit by the measles outbreak. In her county alone, there are currently 51 confirmed cases of measles and another 13 suspected.
It certainly has reached a critical stage in my county.
Stonier is now co-sponsoring a bipartisan House bill that would require every child at every public and private school in the state and licensed daycare center to be vaccinated for measles, mumps, and rubella unless they have a legitimate medical or religious exemption.
If you would have asked me 4 years ago, I would have told you that, yeah, every child needs their vaccines.
Abigail Eckhart refuses to vaccinate her youngest child. She says it's because her middle child suffered significant behavioral and physical reactions after being vaccinated, including severe eczema and food allergies.
If I could go back, I wouldn't have vaccinated any of my kids.
According to the CDC, most people who get the vaccine do not have any serious health problems. The agency also says for every 1,000 children who get the measles, 1 or 2 will die from it.
The benefits of the vaccine greatly outweigh the risks.
So as you can see, it was a measles outbreak that spawned the reaction to make governors and other legal professionals seek the taking away of certain exemptions that people had from the mandatory situation. So recently, very recently, we've only had it for a few days, we've had a mutation. And the mutation has changed everything. A catalyst to change everything. So let's take a look at what's happened as a result of the new mutation, the mutated strain of COVID-19.
Concerns over this have led to the widespread travel restrictions announced this evening. Our health correspondent Catherine Burns reports now on what we know about the mutation and how it happened.
Since the pandemic started, we've learned a lot about coronavirus, but it's been learning about us too. It's had practice at dealing with our immune systems and has developed an extra way of fighting us, this new variant. It's changed 23 times. Many differences are linked to the all-important spike protein, the part of the virus that lets it bind onto human cells. So the worry is that this mutation could make it easier for the virus to infect us. Doctors think this new variant could spread up to 70% faster, although that figure is just an estimate. Scientists advising the government also say it could increase the R number, which shows how the virus can spread, by between 0.4 and 0.9. Until enough of us have been vaccinated, the best way to stop this virus spreading is to stick to social distancing, wear our masks, wash our hands, and to cut contact with other people.
How do I able to isolate this new strain? I don't know. How do I be able to track this new strain? I don't know. They've not made it clear. But we now know that, similar to the film that I did a program on, the film called Songbird, which had mutated to COVID-23, we now have a new mutation, and this mutation has spawned massive lockdowns. Tier 4 is now in place, and people are stopping visitors from the UK coming here. Could this be a problem, reaction, solution situation? Problem, reaction, solution. Because with this new strain, what they're saying is that the vaccines that are in place will still be effective. Now, I use that term, vaccines, because of the future that's coming. We've been given one vaccine at the moment, but I want to let you listen to what Mr. Chris Whitty says about vaccines before we close.
Things. But the aim would be to roll out this vaccine and then any others that get a license and are effective and safe. And we expect by the middle of the year probably to have a portfolio of 3 or 4 vaccines which we can actually use. We know that these are very good vaccines to provide short to medium term protection. We don't know how long that lasts. It might last for a very long time. It might last for 9 months. I think it's more likely to be somewhere between those two. And in that case, we may have to have a situation where we have to be in a position to revaccinate, particularly people who are the most vulnerable.
So the expert tells us that the vaccine is going to be one of many vaccines. So what we've been told in these news stories is that these are not vaccines that have any agenda to be a cure or to prevent anything. They're just a vaccine in order to, it seems, just vaccinate people. So what is the true agenda? Because if Chris Whitty is telling us that a vaccine can last a very long time, from 9 months to a very long time, or maybe somewhere in between, what does that actually mean? What is a very long time? Will it last your lifetime once you've been vaccinated? Will it protect you from COVID-21, 22, 23? Will it protect you from these so-called mutations that are happening? Now, don't you think it's interesting? Don't you think it's interesting that this country, the UK, is the first to have a vaccine, and this country is the first to have the mutated strain of COVID within days of having the vaccine, within weeks, should I say, not long. Problem, reaction, solution. The uptake of the vaccine has not been good enough for them. They have to create a situation where we're going to be forced. They would like to use the word persuaded, encouraged, educated. This means coercion. We're going to be forced. Now, the fact that it's all happened at this time of the year where many people are emotionally attached to this time of the year, Christmas, is very important. They want to send a deep and lasting message that if you do not get this vaccine, as it says in the news articles, the only way to prevent lockdowns, to prevent these things happening, is to get vaccinated. Even though they say that the vaccine cannot prevent you from passing on or catching it. But it can stop the symptoms. It can stop the symptoms even though there don't seem to be people that really display any symptoms unless they're in a hospital or behind doors. I've never seen anybody fall over from being short of breath. It's a respiratory illness. I've never seen anybody in the street coughing and, you know, obviously been taken ill with the vaccine, the pandemic, you know, where people are dropping like flies. I've not seen it. And I'm not making any statements about that. I'm just saying, with my eyes that I use to examine the world around me, I've not seen this happen. But I'm told by the media that this is happening. Problem, reaction, solution, people. We are being told that we need to get this vaccine, and the elite, the people that are using the UK as the forerunner before it's rolled out all over the world, are looking to use this as a big programming device to say to us, if you do not play the game and put this substance into your body that could change your DNA. People, this might not even stay up that long, this video. So I'm putting all this effort into making this video. It might not even stay up that long. We know what's happening with these videos. I'm trying to not say too much to get it taken down too quick. But people, be very careful, because we're coming into the fire zone now. We're coming into the war zone now, where certain things are going to happen, and it's going to be unlike any other time. We're going to be forced to do things we don't want to do. And many people are going to be ostracized and looked at as outcasts. Have you got the strength to hold while all this is going on? To hold what is right, to hold on to your humanity. I'm going to tell you a little story the other day, that happened the other day before I close on this episode of ELAVI Truth TV. And this was, I went into the post office and the guy at the front turned around and ordered me to get out. And I just looked at him and I thought, no, you can't be talking to me like that. Ordering. So the person in front of me looked behind at me as if to say, who's he talking to? I said, well, he can't be talking to me like that, so he must be talking to you. And do you know what the person did? He left. Now this person obviously put himself in the position where he was policing other people, stating that, you know, there's only supposed to be 4 people in the post office at a time. Now when I entered the post office, I didn't see the sign that said all these 4 people in and stuff like this. So I'd obviously, you know, rattled his little cage. But what he showed me is this, is that people are ready to attack and police people. We've been seeing it a lot. So we're going to have to be strong in the coming days. I didn't let it faze me. On the way out, this guy come past me and he was like, can you believe it? Or something like that. And I thought, just let it go. Because there's going to be a lot of people attacking and pushing us to do things we don't want to do. Stay strong, people. Believe in what's right. And don't let anybody force you to do anything. Even though they're going to try and coerce you and say they're going to take away this and take away that. Remember this, people. Remember. Sometimes the thing that you have to lose is more valuable than the thing they're threatening to take away. And that thing you have to lose might not be something obvious or can be seen immediately. But down the road, you're going to be very sorry that you lost it. So don't trade something very, very precious for something that means nothing. ELAVI Truth TV signing out. See you soon.